The story you are about to hear does not begin in a kitchen, or behind a counter, or even with food. It begins with rejection. Not the dramatic kind that makes headlines, but the quiet kind that kills ideas before they ever get a chance to breathe. A young man stands in a classroom, holding a business plan he believes in. While the person grading his future calmly explains why it will never work, the concept is too simple. The menu is too small. The risk is too high. The grade reflects that judgment. The idea is dismissed. And in that moment, most people would move on. This story exists because one person did not. Long before Raising Cane's became a name Americans would recognize, before its red and yellow signs lit up highways and city streets, it was nothing more than a stubborn belief. A belief that doing one thing extremely well could matter more than doing many things halfway. A belief that focus could beat variety. A belief that people did not need more options, they needed consistency. At the time, that belief went against everything the fast food industry stood for. In the 1990s, fast food was all about expansion, speed, and choice. Menus grew larger every year. Chicken chains offered wings, sandwiches, wraps, salads, and rotating specials. The logic was simple: the more you offer, the more people you attract. A restaurant that sold only chicken fingers sounded reckless, almost irresponsible. Todd Graves heard all of that. From professors, from bankers, from people who believed they were being realistic. He listened carefully, and then he ignored them. He was not wealthy. He had no safety net, no influential family name, no guaranteed second chance. What he had was an idea that refused to leave him alone. After college, when no one would fund his plan, he took jobs that had nothing to do with restaurants. He worked long, exhausting shifts in oil refineries. He did dangerous, uncomfortable work because it paid better than comfort ever would. Every paycheck went toward a future that still did not exist. This part of the story rarely makes it into marketing campaigns, but it matters more than the logo or the sauce. Raising Cane's was not built by confidence. It was built by endurance. When the first restaurant finally opened in 1996, it did not look like a breakthrough. It looked modest, almost forgettable. One small location in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. No hype, no national attention. Just a counter, a fryer, and a menu so short it made people pause. The restaurant was named after Graves' yellow Labrador retriever, Cane, not because it sounded corporate or clever, but because it felt personal. The business reflected its founder. Simple, loyal, focused. In the early days, there were no guarantees. Every day the doors opened was a risk. Every customer mattered. And yet, something began to happen that numbers alone could not explain. People came back. Not because they were curious, but because they were satisfied. The chicken was fresh, never frozen. The coating was consistent. The fries were hot. The sauce lingered in memory longer than expected. It was not flashy food. It was reliable food, and reliability is rare. While other chains chased innovation, Raising Cane's chose repetition. That choice would eventually become its identity. Customers did not need to learn a new menu or adjust to a new recipe. What they experienced the first time was what they would experience the 10th time. That trust turned first-time visitors into regulars, and regulars into advocates. Growth came slowly at first, almost quietly. College students discovered Cane's and made it part of their routine. Late-night visits became traditions. Word spread, not through advertisements but through conversations. This place was different. Not because it tried to be different, but because it refused to change. Behind the scenes, the company was making decisions that would define its future. It avoided aggressive franchising. It protected quality over speed. It invested in training and culture. Employees were expected to bring energy, not just efficiency. Music filled the stores. The atmosphere felt alive. Cane's was not just serving food, it was building a feeling. As the brand expanded beyond Louisiana into Texas and other southern states, the same question followed it everywhere. Could something this simple survive at scale? Many chains lose their identity when they grow. Cane's did the opposite. The larger it became, the tighter its focus grew. By the time national attention began to notice, raising canes was no longer an experiment. It was a system. A disciplined operation that knew exactly what it was and, more importantly, what it was not. While competitors fought for attention with limited-time offers and constant menu changes, Cane's stood still. And in an industry obsessed with movement, standing still made it impossible to ignore. Customers knew what Cane's represented. They trusted it. They defended it. Loyalty formed not through discounts, but through consistency. This was the foundation, not the peak. Because what came next would transform Raising Cane's from a successful restaurant chain into something much larger. A symbol of focus in a distracted industry. A reminder that simplicity, when executed without compromise, can outperform complexity. And just as America's obsession with chicken was about to explode, Raising Cane's was already positioned exactly where it needed to be. The quiet, almost invisible force behind the brand's rise was its unwavering dedication to its core product. While other businesses scrambled to add breakfast, desserts, and a dozen different sandwich options, Cane's doubled down on what made them famous. It wasn't about being stubborn. It was about being strategic. They understood a powerful principle of consumer psychology. In a world of overwhelming choice, people crave simplicity and reliability. They want to know what they're going to get every single time. Think about it from a customer's perspective. You walk into a fast food restaurant. You're hungry, maybe you're tired. The last thing you want is to stare at a giant, confusing menu with 50 different items, trying to figure out what's new, what's good, and what's a good deal. At Cane's, the decision is made for you before you even reach the counter. You're there for chicken fingers. The only real question is how many. This reduction of decision fatigue is an incredibly powerful, yet underrated, competitive advantage. It makes the entire experience faster, easier, and more pleasant. This focus also allowed them to perfect their supply chain and operations in a way that diversified chains simply couldn't. When you only have a few ingredients, you can obsess over the quality of each one. You can build stronger relationships with suppliers. You can train your staff to a level of mastery that is impossible when they have to learn 20 different recipes. Every single employee at Raising Cane's, from the newest hire to the store manager, knows how to make one thing perfectly. This operational excellence isn't just about efficiency. It's about delivering a consistently high-quality product that builds deep, lasting trust with customers. And as the years went on, the industry started to notice. The fast casual boom of the 2000s and 2010s saw a new wave of restaurants adopting a similar philosophy. Do one thing, and do it exceptionally well. You saw it with burger joints, pizza places, and taco shops. But Raising Cane's was there long before it was a trend. They were the pioneers of this focused approach in the modern chicken space. The brand's culture also played a massive role in its expansion. Todd Graves didn't just want to build a chain of restaurants. He wanted to create a place where people enjoyed working. The company is famous for its fun, high-energy atmosphere. They invest heavily in their employees, who they call crew members, offering competitive pay, extensive training, and opportunities for advancement. This focus on internal culture radiates outward. Happy employees lead to happy customers. When you walk into a Raising Cane's, you feel a different kind of energy than you do at many of its competitors. It feels less like a corporate machine and more like a local spot with a soul. This combination of a simple, perfect product, operational mastery, and a vibrant culture created a powerful flywheel effect. More happy customers led to more word-of-mouth marketing, which led to more new customers. The brand grew organically, building a fiercely loyal fanbase city by city. They didn't need to blanket the airwaves with commercials or gimmicks. Their product, and the experience of getting it, was the marketing. Today, Raising Cane's is a multi-billion-dollar company with hundreds of locations across the country and even internationally. The young man whose business plan was once dismissed as a failure is now a celebrated entrepreneur. But the most remarkable part of the story is not the scale of its success, but the scale of its consistency. A box combo in California tastes just like a box combo in Louisiana. The sauce is the same. The chicken is just as fresh. The toast is just as buttery. The lesson of Raising Cane's isn't just about business. It's a lesson about the power of belief, the importance of focus, and the quiet dignity of endurance. It's a reminder that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is to keep it simple. In a world that is constantly telling you to be more, to do more, and to offer more, Raising Cane's is a testament to the profound power of doing one thing and doing it right. It's a story that started with a simple idea, fueled by rejection, and built, one chicken finger at a time, into an American icon. The first Raising Cane's didn't explode with success. There were no viral moments, no overnight fame, no sudden rush of money. What happened instead was quieter, slower, and far more dangerous. The restaurant had to survive, every single day. In an industry where most new businesses vanish within their first few years, just surviving was a silent victory. Todd Graves, the founder, quickly learned that opening the doors was the easy part. Keeping them open was a different battle entirely. Costs were relentless. Fresh chicken was more expensive than frozen. Quality labor couldn't be rushed. Consistency demanded discipline, and discipline took time. There were days the numbers barely made sense. Days when growth felt invisible. Days when quitting seemed like the only logical choice. But logic had never built Raising Cane's. Instead of expanding too fast, the company made a decision that would define its identity. It stayed close to its core. No shortcuts. No frozen supply chains. No chasing trends with experimental menu items. While competitors tried to be everything to everyone, Cane's focused on winning one type of customer completely. That foundation became college students. In towns where budgets were tight and loyalty mattered, Raising Cane's was a perfect fit. The food was affordable, filling, and always the same. The atmosphere felt familiar. Late-night crowds filled the stores. Staff knew regulars by face, sometimes by name. It wasn't just a place to eat. It became part of a routine, part of a lifestyle. This is where many chains lose control. Popularity can push a brand into reckless expansion. But Cane's did the opposite. It studied its own success. Each new location was carefully tested. Each store was expected to perform, not just exist. Growth was earned, not forced. Behind the scenes, a powerful company culture was forming. One that refused to treat employees as disposable. Training was intense. High energy was expected. The brand's personality was loud, confident, and unapologetically itself. The music played loudly. The walls were decorated boldly. Cane's didn't aim for quiet efficiency. It aimed for presence. As the brand expanded beyond Louisiana, the pressure mounted. Different states meant different supply chains, labor laws, and customer expectations. Many brands collapsed under that weight. Cane's adapted without changing its identity. The menu stayed the same. The standards stayed the same. The experience stayed the same. This consistency built something more valuable than any advertising campaign: trust. Customers didn't need to wonder what they would get. They already knew. And when people know, they return. When they return, the numbers grow, slowly at first. Then faster. Then fast enough that competitors started paying attention. By the time Raising Cane's entered major markets, the fast food landscape was changing. Chicken was no longer just another option, it was becoming the central battlefield. Huge corporations poured money into massive marketing campaigns. New chicken sandwiches launched with aggressive promotions. Social media amplified the rivalries. The industry became louder, faster, more desperate. And Cane's? Cane's remained quiet. While others shouted, Cane's repeated its simple promise. While others competed on variety, Cane's competed on focus. And while others chased short-term attention, Cane's invested in long-term loyalty. This strategy didn't make headlines at first, but it started producing results that were impossible to ignore. Store by store, city by city, Raising Cane's grew into a national presence. The scale of that growth would later surprise analysts, especially considering how little the company had changed its formula. The financial impact of this discipline would eventually place Cane among the most powerful players in the industry, a position few would have predicted from such a simple menu. And yet, this success came with its own risks. As Raising Cane's expanded, the cost of staying true to its standards skyrocketed. Sourcing fresh ingredients at scale is unforgiving. Training thousands of employees to deliver the exact same experience everywhere is incredibly difficult. Protecting a brand while growing it requires constant vigilance. Every decision carried immense weight, because one mistake could damage years of trust. Still, the company pressed forward. New locations opened across the United States. Some in cities where competition was fierce, others in areas where expectations were high. Each store was a test. Could the Raising Cane's model survive under this much pressure? And each successful opening just strengthened the foundation further. By this point, the company's internal numbers told a story that few outsiders fully understood, a story of revenue climbing steadily, of locations multiplying, of a brand quietly positioning itself among giants. The full scale of that transformation, how much the company was truly worth and how far its reach had extended, would soon become impossible to hide. But Raising Cane's was no longer just reacting to the market, it was shaping it. Because as the chicken wars intensified, something unexpected happened. Cane's didn't just compete, it stood apart. Customers compared it, they defended it, they argued about it. That loyalty turned into identity. And identity in the fast food world is power. The company that once struggled to open a single store was now influencing an entire category. Its choices affected suppliers, competitors, and what consumers expected from fast food. What started as a rejected classroom idea was becoming a masterclass in focus, patience, and control. And the most revealing chapter of this story had not even been fully told yet. Because when the financial reality, the true scale of its expansion, and its global footprint finally come into view, it becomes clear. What happens when a brand gets so big people stop seeing it as just a restaurant and start treating it like a side to choose in a war? This is the moment Raising Cane's entered without announcing itself. No press conference, no declaration. Just results that became too big to ignore. By the time the American fast food industry realized what Cane's was becoming, the rules of the game had already changed. Chicken was no longer just another menu category. It was the center of competition. Giants were fighting for dominance, pouring millions into advertising, launching new products at breakneck speed, and chasing viral moments. Every brand wanted attention. Every brand wanted loyalty. Every brand wanted to win. Raising Cane's wanted control. Unlike its competitors, Cane's never tried to dominate the conversation. It allowed the conversation to form around it. Customers compared it without being asked to. Fans defended it without being paid to. Social media filled with debates over sauce, portion size, and quality, while Cane's itself remained silent. That silence was strategic. It let customers feel like they discovered the brand on their own. As expansion accelerated, the scale of the operation reached a level that few expected. New restaurants opened across the United States at a pace that balanced ambition with restraint. Each location followed the same principles: fresh chicken, no shortcuts, no menu creep, no compromises. The simplicity that once seemed like a weakness had become its armor. Behind the scenes, the financial growth began to reshape the company's future. Revenues climbed year after year. What started as a single-store risk had evolved into a multi-billion-dollar operation. The kind of growth that forces competitors to recalculate their strategies. The kind of growth that turns a private company into an industry benchmark. But Cane's rise was not accidental. It was engineered through discipline. One of the most overlooked aspects of Cane's success was its refusal to franchise recklessly. While many chains expand by handing control to outside operators, Cane's chose a different path. Control remained centralized. Standards were enforced aggressively. Every detail mattered, from food quality to store atmosphere. This slowed expansion, but it protected the brand's identity. And identity once lost is almost impossible to regain. As the brand moved into larger markets, it faced a new challenge: expectations. In cities dominated by established players, customers arrived skeptical. Cane's answered skepticism with consistency. No overpromising, no gimmicks, just repetition. The same experience delivered again and again until doubt faded into habit. This approach transformed casual customers into loyal ones. Loyalty created predictability. Predictability stabilized revenue. And stability gave Cane's something far more valuable than hype: leverage. With leverage came confidence. And with confidence came bolder moves. The brand's visual identity grew louder. Stores became larger, brighter, and more expressive. Music, design, and energy became part of the product. Cane's locations were not just places to eat. They were places to be. This mattered deeply to younger audiences, especially those who valued experience as much as food. As the chicken wars intensified, Cane's found itself in a unique position. It was being compared to giants without behaving like one. While competitors raced to innovate, Cane's stayed disciplined. While others adjusted recipes and prices, Cane's stayed predictable. And in an unpredictable world, predictability became a luxury. Internally, the numbers told a story of acceleration. Store counts increased rapidly, revenue surged. Market presence expanded beyond expectations. Analysts began paying attention. Industry insiders began asking questions. How could a chain with such a limited menu generate this level of growth? How could it scale fresh food without collapsing under cost pressure? How could it maintain its culture while expanding nationally? The answers were not simple, but they were consistent: focus, discipline, control. As Raising Cane's solidified its position in the United States, it began to test something new: geography. Carefully, deliberately, the brand explored opportunities beyond its traditional footprint. These moves were not rushed. Each new region was evaluated for compatibility. Supply chains were tested. Cultural fit was studied. Cane's was not interested in planting flags. It was interested in sustaining standards. When international locations began appearing, they sent a quiet but powerful signal. This was no longer just a regional success story, it was becoming global. Different markets responded differently, but one thing remained constant. Wherever Cane's went, the menu stayed the same. The identity stayed intact. The experience stayed recognizable. This consistency reinforced trust. And trust fed growth. As the company expanded, the financial reality became impossible to hide. Though privately held, estimates of Cane's valuation began circulating. Numbers that placed it among the most valuable fast food brands in the world. Numbers tied closely to its founder, whose personal net worth grew alongside the company he refused to abandon years earlier. That founder, once dismissed in a classroom, now controlled an empire built on a single idea. One product, one focus, one refusal to compromise. But growth brings pressure. The larger Cane's became, the more fragile its success felt. Fresh food at scale is unforgiving. Labor costs fluctuate, consumer expectations evolve. One mistake, repeated across hundreds of locations, could damage years of trust. Cane's leadership understood this. Expansion never meant relaxation, it meant vigilance. Every new store increased risk. Every new market tested resilience. And yet, Cane's continued forward. By now, Raising Cane's had become something more than a restaurant chain. It was a reference point, a brand others studied, a strategy others tried to copy. But imitation rarely matched execution. The simplicity that made Cane's powerful could not be replicated without discipline, and discipline cannot be faked. As debates over chicken dominance filled timelines and comment sections, Cane's watched quietly. Its numbers spoke for it. Its lines spoke for it. Its fans spoke for it. And still, the most revealing part of the story remained just out of view. Because growth alone does not define success. Scale alone does not explain influence. To truly understand what Raising Cane's has become, the full picture must come into focus. The exact size of its footprint, the real financial weight behind the brand, the countries it has entered, the future it is preparing for, all of it exists. All of it matters, and all of it completes the story. When does a feeling turn into a fact? For Raising Cane's, the shift from momentum to measurement happened without a big announcement. It happened in the numbers. Numbers so strong they forced the entire fast food industry to stop and stare. What started as a rejected business plan from a college class was now putting up figures that rivaled the biggest names in the game. By the mid-2020s, no one was talking about Raising Cane's potential anymore. They were talking about its scale. A few hundred restaurants had blossomed into over 900. States that had never even heard of Cane, yes, were suddenly seeing multiple locations open in a single year. The drive-through lines became legendary, spilling out onto main roads. Grand openings felt more like music festivals than restaurant launches, with massive crowds gathering for a taste. This explosive growth wasn't an accident, and it showed no signs of slowing down. But here is the most fascinating part. At the heart of this empire was a privately held company, no public stock, no stressful quarterly earnings calls, no shareholders demanding quick profits at the expense of quality. This privacy gave Raising Cane's a superpower in the modern business world: freedom. The freedom to think decades ahead, not just quarters. The freedom to prioritize the quality of their food over the speed of their expansion. The freedom to only grow when they knew the foundation was solid enough to support it. As their annual revenues soared past the multi-billion-dollar mark, industry analysts started to crunch the numbers, trying to figure out what this quiet giant was actually worth. And while the company never released official figures, the consensus was staggering. Estimates placed Raising Cane's valuation somewhere near $20 billion. Think about that. A $20 billion empire built almost entirely on chicken fingers, crinkle-cut fries, Texas toast, and unwavering discipline. And that valuation is tied directly to one man, Todd Graves, the founder who once worked grueling shifts in an oil refinery just to scrape together the startup cash. He became one of America's wealthiest restaurant entrepreneurs, with a personal net worth estimated in the tens of billions. How? Not by chasing every new food trend. Not by selling out to the highest bidder. But by stubbornly refusing to abandon his core belief that relentless focus could beat almost anything. But even with all that money, Raising Cane's never tried to be a luxury brand. They marketed familiarity. As its financial power grew, its public image stayed firmly on the ground. It was the go-to spot for students, for families, for a late-night craving. It was for people who wanted it to be perfect every single time. They knew exactly what they were getting, and they loved it. Then, as the Cane's footprint spread across the United States, something else began to happen. They started crossing borders. Slowly, carefully. They didn't just plaster their logo all over the globe. They chose their international markets with precision. Locations began popping up in the Middle East, in countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They also established a presence in Mexico. Each move was deliberate, each market thoroughly tested for supply chain reliability and cultural fit. And here's the key: they didn't change a thing. Raising Cane's didn't alter its menu to cater to local tastes. They brought the exact same experience with them. That consistency was their secret weapon. In every country, the rules were the same: fresh, never frozen chicken. The same simple, limited menu. The same vibrant atmosphere. The same high standards. For Cane's, expansion never meant dilution. It meant duplication. And when you duplicate a winning formula without compromise, that's how you scale a brand without it collapsing under its own weight. Of course, operating at this size brought new, more complex challenges. Labor costs were rising. The competition for prime real estate was fierce. And customer expectations were higher than ever. A small mistake was no longer small. A single operational failure could ripple across hundreds of restaurants. The leadership team knew this. To keep growing, they needed tighter systems, more rigorous training, and constant oversight. And still, they pushed forward. What makes Raising Cane's so dangerous to its competitors isn't just its growth. It's its predictability. You can easily undercut them with a 2-for-1 deal because their customers aren't just chasing a bargain. They're chasing a feeling of comfort and familiarity. The brand had become a habit, and habits are incredibly hard to break. In an industry obsessed with constant reinvention and new limited-time offers, Raising Cane's proved that repetition could be more powerful than novelty. While everyone else was begging customers to try something new, Cane's was simply asking them to trust something consistent. Today, Raising Cane's is one of the largest chicken-focused chains in the United States. But the most remarkable part of this entire story isn't the money, the number of locations, or the countries they're in. No to jumping on trends that would dilute their identity. They understand a fundamental truth that so many others forget. True growth isn't about adding more things. It's about protecting the core of what already works. The future will undoubtedly test discipline. Markets will change, consumer tastes will evolve, and new competitors will emerge. Raising Cane's will face immense pressure to adapt. But if their history tells us anything, they'll respond the way they always have, by refining, not reinventing. From a failed business class project to a global brand valued in the tens of billions, the story of Raising Cane's isn't about luck. It's a story of focus, patience, and a belief so powerful it could survive rejection and build an empire. Most ideas fail quietly. This one simply refused to.